right, so you can read it yourself. Welcome, please come in. Let's do this. This looks a lot like a podcast studio.
It is a podcast studio.
Yeah.
That's where the magic happens.
Incredible. It's a rainy late afternoon here in Washington, D.C. Congressman Gaetz is on the House floor doing a little voting. So we're waiting for him to wrap up and come over here and talk to us. We're cooling our heels in the meantime in this podcast studio here, which just happens to be the Congressman's office. Where's my powder? Cinema verite.
Hey, how you doing, Congressman?
Hey!
Hey there, James Paulus.
Yeah, nice to see you, James. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think that we're actually putting the needs of the people first around here? We're not. And if they want to know why, it's because of money.
You've got a few allies. Who do you think is doing this right in terms of their approach, and who do you like working with on this issue?
Raja Krishnamurthy, a Democrat from Illinois who doesn't see eye to eye with me on a lot of things, but we're working on legislation together to ban this. Even centrist Republicans like Brian Fitzpatrick, someone who voted to impeach President Trump, right?
Even someone like AOC, more of a household
Yes,
name. Has she pulled you aside and sort of given you an earful about this stuff?
Look, AOC is flawed in a lot of ways, right? She's not a particular fan of mine, and I don't celebrate much of her work. But one thing I can tell you about her, she's not corrupt. And that is meaningful to me, because even if someone is wrong, but they hold those views sincerely, there's at least an opportunity for persuasion. With the people who are bought and paid for by lobbyist donations, by personal emoluments and enrichments, and by the utilization of inside information to make money in the stock market, those people are not persuadable.
In 2012, after a glut of negative press, Congress passed a law called the Stock Act, which required them to disclose their trades.
We should limit any elected official from owning stocks in industries that they have the power to impact.
There was this belief that you didn't have to ban congressional stock trading, you could just require disclosures, and that those disclosures would shame people into conduct that was better and more virtuous, and that created more public trust around lawmaking. The reality is folks have become so brazen, like they're willing to tell you that they're on the Armed Services Committee and trading Raytheon stock.
You mean to tell me that shaming does not work on Capitol Hill?
No, it turns out that congressional stock trading will occur in an ecosystem of shamelessness. The reason this is allowed to persist in the absence of stronger laws, because both sides are doing it, right? Bipartisanship can be one of the most insidious things in this town when it's bipartisan corruption, when it's a bipartisan consensus around self-dealing and self-enrichment. And that's what we have here.
It's clear there's plenty of self-dealing and self-enrichment, but who are the worst offenders? Congressman Gaetz offered to take us on a tour.
So one of the committees where people have a lot of information is the Appropriations Committee, because they can view almost any vector of government funding. And so, this is Mr. Rutherford's office. He's on the Ethics Committee and the Appropriations Committee. 152 stock trades. Stocks go through the roof. And actually bought Raytheon stock the day that Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, imagine if every American could make money off of war.
Yeah, setting aside the whole shame and ethics questions. How many more on our hit list here?
There are a few more. I wish there were fewer on the hit list. I wish we could only stop at one or two offices, but as it turns out, energy is a sector that sees a lot of congressional stock trading.
Sure.
And we have members who are on the Energy Subcommittee of Appropriations, like Michael Guest, chairman of the Ethics Committee, and he's traded somewhere between tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in energy stocks. He's been buying online gaming stocks and just making a killing on them. So you would think that the people that were on the Ethics Committee would be your best allies in this fight, but indeed they're some of the most prolific traders. And not only trading, but in the case of Mr. Guest, trading in an area where he has access to energy information more so than almost any other American.
And no indication that he wants to maybe slow down, pump the brakes, recognize that there might be some appearance of impropriety here?
It seems as though the pace is only accelerating.
All right. Huge amounts of money sloshing around. Not a lot of accountability.
Which building? Well, they have to uncryogenically freeze the senators for votes.
While walking to the Senate offices, we passed two members who deserve mention. Senator Tom Carper, who profited from multiple trades in which he shorted or literally bet against the U.S. economy. And Senator Bob Menendez, who is indicted for receiving gold bars and other gifts from foreign governments.
Why trade stocks when you can get the payment up front? If you were on your normal subway, if you were at the People Mover at the airport, you wouldn't think it's this thing. People get on these trains, they start taking photos.
Oh yeah, no, the open air one is just like the only one of its kind, I think.
Feels a lot like the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport to me, right? And the challenge we have is a bicameral one. It's not just in the House, it's in the Senate too. Some people almost have the ability to see the future. And it's regulatory actions that sometimes people get an early look at. There was a case where Senator Mark Wayne Mullen bought a company that created a certain type of water meter, and just after that happened, Senator Mullen made a killing because the EPA required that type of monitoring that the company provided for in their technology. And it's interesting that Senator Mullen is also on the committee that oversees water policy and might know where the EPA was heading. Also on the Armed Services Committee, huge trader of defense stocks. That's always a concern for me when you have members of Congress that are betting on war. Now, I come from a district where the people have to go and fight those wars and die for them and lose their limbs and their marriages and their families. And to know that members of Congress are here trading defense stocks while they're central to the decisions about war and peace, it boils my blood as much as any of it.
In a time of extreme division, it's amazing to see how unified members of Congress are on this matter, both those who are profiting from stock trades and those who oppose it.
Big one.
This is ground zero.
Yes, we have hit the summit. So Nancy Pelosi promised she would bring legislation to the floor to ban congressional stock trading. Never did. About $120 million in volume that she's done trading stocks, about $3.5 million a year.
There's no kind of like ribbon or prize medals hanging out here. She's got to get something at some point, right?
Well, I tell you, this is where we could have gotten action. You know, she made a promise that we were going to hear a bill to change it, but when you're looking at this type of volume, I mean, she bought like millions of dollars in call options on one stock that just shot through the roof. So certainly a prolific trader, not someone who kept their promises on ethics.
Her bill was all theater then, right?
Well, it was a bill that never even came up.
Saw the light of day.
Never saw the light of day. So
Unbelievable.
it just shows you that Washington promises are less convertible than Nancy Pelosi's own call options.
Yeah.
Those are pretty convertible to cash. Washington promises a lot more like Confederate money.